Hello, so this is just going to be a short extras video. I thought it'd be cool after talking about all the monsters in Silent Hill during the game, if we then looked at the wiki afterwards, just to show off what the background is behind some of the monsters and the design philosophy. I know not all of them, well, I mean, it feels as though not all of them had any intention behind them, like they were just trying to make a monster of some kind. But then a lot of them do also have a backstory or a meaning to them. We'll start off with the Grey Child, the Grey Children, because these are the ones I don't think we ever got to see these, or at least they're only in. Yeah, apparently they don't appear in the European or Japanese versions. I had a feeling they're in one section of the game later on, but maybe I'm wrong. But goddamn, look at that. Not really sure what's going on there. But yeah, they basically look like small children or young children. Like elementary school children, like 8, 9, 10 I guess. 7, 8, 9, 10. These ones look a lot more human than the Mumblers, which is what we did fight in the school. And what we saw in this scene. So that was the intro scene you get where Harry first meets the Nightmare World, and instead of the Grey Children we fought Mumblers, or got attacked by Mumblers. Yeah, they're pretty interesting enemies. I guess with these ones it's pretty obvious what they're supposed to be. They're supposed to represent the other children that didn't get along with Alessa and didn't treat her very nicely. Because if you remember, at one point in the game there's a room with just a desk in the middle, which is just supposed to be Alessa's desk. Sort of shows off the fact she was bullied by all the other children. This is pretty creepy. Beta art for it. See there, they look more like people than the other art, and as they do in game. I think the sort of bluish skin tone does make them look less human. And is that like a worm head or something, or a snake head or something, minus the eyes? Pretty disturbing in general. And the enemy that replaces them is the Mumbler. Or maybe we'll read from the description as well. Oh yeah, so we do fight them in one respect. We fight the Stalkers, don't we? And they're just invisible versions of the Grey Children, I think. Yeah, I think we know the symbolism for them. Those ones are pretty easy. And then the Mumbler is the monster we actually fought. Which are scary. I mean, it doesn't have the symbolism of the Grey Child or the Grey Children in the skull. Like in some respects it's even weirder that you're fighting the Grey Children, or if you were fighting the Grey Children. Because they do look like children, don't they? So it's got to play on your mind on some level. Don't really get what these things are supposed to represent though. Yeah, that's really vague. The Mumblers take on a dark image of the small menacing animals and demons from fairy tales that Alessa Gillespie used to read frequently as a child. Okay. What does that mean? They just look like mole people? It's a bit vague. So these are one of the enemies that I think they wanted to make a cool design. They came up with this, and then they came up with an excuse for why it looked that way afterwards. Not that I'm saying it's bad, just saying it doesn't seem as well thought out as some of the other monsters. So one of the things I actually found when I looked into this as well was when we were playing the game later on in the Nightmare world, we saw different versions of some of the monsters, like the dogs look different and the flying monsters, and there are actually 2 different types of each of the monsters, which is interesting. And I never actually knew the names for these, but the Air Screamer is the original pterodactyl creature, which is pretty weak. I think these were based off of creatures from The Mist, so Stephen King's The Mist, because there's like pterodactyl creatures in it, and I think they just made up an excuse for why they look the way they do after that. Like they decided this looks cool, let's do this, and then they made up an excuse for why Alessa made up these monsters after that. So these are pretty low res. But yeah, it's literally just a pterodactyl. Okay, that's a bit better. Gotta say, I do love the art for these. They look cool. There's not really much to talk about there. Yeah, some crap about how it's based off the Lost World, which seems a bit ridiculous. Why is there no T-Rex enemy then? Sure, there must be a T-Rex in there. Night Flutter. Oh dear. So this is just basically the same model, but it has a head of worms apparently for some reason. And the dog enemy is supposed to be similar. Her disgust for worms. Why worms? Like, why does she care about worms? Where's the dog? Oh, and they have stupid names as well. Like, the dog is called the Groaner, and the pterodactyl is called the Air Screamer, but it's not what you're going to call them, is it? This is pretty cool art, though. That looks really good. Like, I don't know why a small girl is having nightmares about a dog that looks like that, though. That seems a bit intense for a small child. But hey ho. Although I guess really it's only her intention that's giving birth to it, and it's the dark god that's giving it form, I presume. I don't know if I mentioned that in the playthrough, but this image, it's just brilliant. I love that image. And let's show off. So that's the Groaner. Oh, it's the worm head. That's the upscaled version. Yeah, this art's a bit disturbing, but on this picture as well. I don't know if they're any tougher though. Didn't really spend. Oh, guess they must be. Let's have a look. Okay, yeah, they are tougher. Didn't really spend long enough fighting them, or I don't think I've fought them at all really, to know how much health they had. Those ones are tougher though. What else? So these, I think these are just similar to Grey Children. And again, the backstory is similar. They just represent her experience of being bullied by the other children. Oh, and here we go, the Hang Scratcher, which is the lizard creatures from the sewers. Like, what is that? So hanged scratchers represent the image of a composite of many insect specimens due to Lesser Gillespie's fear of insects. The only exception being butterflies. Crickets or locusts have the most prevalent resemblance to the scratchers. The fact they appear and move very reptilian-esque in nature could be akin to dragons, alluding to Alessa's love for fairy tales. They could also represent the way of the Order, sneaking up on and abducting Alessa. This could also explain their persistence when pursuing Harry, and how and when they attack they seem to screech, "Let go of me." What? That seems a bit of a stretch. I can't tell if this is... Oh, that's a pretty good picture. Yeah, I can't tell if this is from like a guide on the book or this is just the author's opinion. What does this say? Oh. Oh, it's just a link to somebody else's video. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is another of the enemies that I think looks cool, but like the explanation for it, the symbolism description, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Oh, and then we got the romper, which is like the sloth bear creature. Yeah, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Oh, and the creepers are just the insects. God damn, that looks good. So that's almost all of them. I'll just take a look at the parasite people. God, those are disturbing. So a lot of the designs, like the explanation of why they look the way they do, just seems to be based off like whatever Alessa was reading as a child at the time, like her books about insects and fairy tale monsters and also dinosaurs, like that all feeds in. And yet there's no T-Rex monster. Like, what's that about?